Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And we'll date stamp this one. It's year 2, blog 46, or in legacy numbers, blog 98. And it's dated 7th of the 1st, 2024. Well, that sounds weird saying that, but yes, we're in the new year. We're approaching the first full week, really, if you count Sunday. Yeah, new horizons, should we say. I've been thinking about this channel a little bit, the blog, the format. I haven't come to any fantastic new decisions on format or anything, but it will change. I think a lot of people like something that's in a block as long as this is, and some people like it smaller. I'll think about a way of making that easier. Might split it into 2. All sorts of things I've been thinking about. But it's been a pretty horrendous first week. Really, this bitty week. Most of us have now gone back to work. I've been only at work for a day, purely because of health reasons. My mother has not been well, but she's on the mend. She's arguing with me, so that's a good sign. You know how it is where you have those little discussions. Yes. So always thankful that illnesses are going away, health is improving. For me, my back is, obviously on a slow mend. My knee is worse. I think that's because I've had to walk slightly differently because of my back, and that's caused me more discomfort in my knee. Wish I could have that operation. Just need to get my blood pressure down to normal. And because things are quite new this year, there's not been, again, many deliveries. There have been some. And that means that there's been less for me to sort of like show you. But I have put in a few trailers at the end of this video, as I always try to do. But it's been based on stuff I've watched that have been on TV, terrestrial TV, or Freeview, mostly. And that doesn't take away the quality. Some of these films that I've watched have been absolutely fantastic. And so it's been one of those weeks where I sort of like looking forward to the future, but off to a sort of like a little bit of a rocky start. But anyway, we'll talk probably a little bit about that as we go through my blog. We always start off with the news. But first of all, before I do that, I will just take a drink. Love my orange. Always will do. And as you know, my news is split up between the war in Ukraine, which will always be there until it ends, and the UK news. So we start off with the war. And I've written down this little article that I've read in the last couple of days. It states 5 children amongst 11 dead by Russian missile strike on Pokrovsk, says the governor. He stated, as a result of this barbaric attack, 11 people died, including 5 children between the ages of 3 and 17 years. 10 were injured. In response, President Zelensky wrote, Russia must feel and always feel that such a strike will not go without consequences for the terrorist state. Yes, so nothing new, no happy news, nothing like that. Then again, not expected. But I do feel that if these are supposed to be military targets, why so many civilians are dying? And I mean, deaths are always bad, but when it affects children, and children as young as 3 years old, wow, it brings it all, the horror of war to sort of like to the foreground. So my thoughts are with them. The UK news has had not much really for me to state about. I wrote a couple of notes here. It was in the news this morning. Post office prosecutions are under review after the scandal, the PM has confirmed. Yes, all in the news and all over the radio this week has been the post office scandal, which a lot of people will know about, possibly not abroad as much. But the post office in the early 2000s brought in a new IT system called Horizon in conjunction with Fujitsu, I believe. And it wasn't particularly a great system. Many complaints, although the post office said there were none. And money started to go missing, and the post office started to prosecute post office masters, stating it was their responsibility to look after the money. It's gone, so it must be you that takes the blame for it. And they prosecuted and gave them all criminal records. So this has gone on and on and on, and eventually the scandal came to light. The post office knew that this system wasn't great. They made accusations which weren't true. There was online meddling from the people that developed the system, where they were fiddling the figures overnight, which apparently was not possible because remote access was not something that could happen. And so to cover this up, they blamed the postmasters. Of course, many questions were asked. Well, if the money's gone, who's got it? Because I haven't. Was one of many questions the postmasters asked. And basically, really, it was the little man versus the government, because the post office's sole stakeholder is the government. 20 years later on, and still only a small fraction of these accusations have been overturned, although as a whole, the whole thing has been overturned. But you have to review all of the cases one by one for compensation, and literally less than a sixth have been brought back into the courts. So this was dramatized by ITV in a 4-part special this week, hour long each night at 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday. And therefore it was all over the news and all over the radio on how strong this drama was, how great it was, what a horrible scandal the whole thing was. And I have to say, I watched it and thought it was brilliant myself. I knew about this problem because I'd heard it many times on the radio. And, I have to say, well done. Alan Bates, I think, is the person who got all the people together to fight the government. And, so many things have happened in those 20 years. Several of the postmasters committed suicide because they couldn't take the fact that they were considered criminals affected their family, whole towns and villages ganging up against them because they thought it was all true. Because we're talking about pension money and all sorts of stuff. So, yes, a very powerful drama. If you haven't seen it, you can get it on streaming services. Definitely worth a watch. 4 hours riveting, totally. Then the other big news, I suppose, is the darts really in the sport. Luke Littler was denied a darts championship by Luke Humphreys in a thrilling final, losing 7-4. And why is that such a big thing? Well, Luke Littler is 16 years old. I think he's 17 in a couple of weeks. So for a 16-year-old to go against, to be a darts champion that early of an age, something special. It was quite funny because even though he lost, just before the match was going to start, it was brought out that he was going to play darts the very next day for his local pub where he plays. And I think they were called the Bogey Flickers or something like that, which made me laugh. It was a thrilling final. That was something else I watched this week. It was great. My mum loved it. And we had a nice little chat about it. Although my mum still says he's not 16. He doesn't look 16. He looks older. But there's a birth certificate. There's all sorts of things they have to go through. There's no way that, that I think he'd have got through and had this much media presence if it weren't for the fact that he definitely was 16. But there we go. Well done to Luke. Better luck next time. I'm sure there's going to be many years where we're going to be seeing him. And then the sad news that happened on Friday for me, David Soul, who's an actor, all through my childhood and a singer, died at the age of 80. It was announced on the radio over here on Friday, but he actually died on the Thursday, surrounded by his wife, family. And, it's always sad to hear of someone dying, but this guy was in a TV series called Starsky and Hutch, which I watched as a child. There were 92 episodes, and I've got them on DVD. And of course, he's in one of my favourite horror films of all time, Salem's Lot, which is a book by Stephen King about vampires in a small town. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, that scared the bejeevers out of me when I first saw it. I was, I think, 10, 11 years old. I mean, it's tame by today's standards, but yeah, you don't need to have blood and gore to not have an enjoyable horror film. He was also in a great film called Magnum Force, which is part of a Dirty Harry series of films. Dirty Harry is one of my favorites. So, that's that. And again, I think it was his appearance in Magnum Force that got him the job as Hutch in Starsky and Hutch. And of course, my sister loved him singing. He came out with a couple of songs over here that did really well. Silver Lady and Don't Give Up on Us, I think, is the two songs. My sister played them over and over and over again. But you play them now after hearing him dying and you go, wow, I haven't heard this in ages, donkey's years. And they were good tracks. I don't think I gave them much credit, probably because I saw him as an actor more than a singer. But we have to look back on these things and realise that he had a career before Starsky and Hutch, before Magnum Force, and he was actually a singer. So, as well as going to acting school and becoming an actor. So it was very sad to hear that he died, 80 years old. My childhood again shrinking every day. And that ends the news. So I'll just take another little bit of a drink. Because we now come to the shout-outs. And you know I love doing the shout-outs. It brings, I think, our community a little bit smaller, you know. Most of these people that I shout out actually have their own channel. I list many of them in my description of all of my blogs. And all of these people have taken their time out of their busy schedule. Remember, these people have been on holiday, have now going back to work, don't have endless amounts of time, you know, to watch a 2-hour video and then write a comment or a question about it. So, you know, time is a commodity that you can never pay back. It's not something that you can reclaim back is time. So I'm very appreciative of it. And the people that have who have written something this week are Martroid, Wee Bob Art, Ian Hill the Ramblings, Down the Rabbit Hole, Gaming Since the 70s, David Retro Games Play Badly, and Denny. And of course I've had a couple of phone calls as well this week, from Rock God and from Mainmeister. And it's been a pretty nice week, you know, to actually speaking, you know, voice-wise to people. Next week's going to be really weird for me because I'm another year older. Ugh. I don't know whether to be happy about that or sad, to be quite honest. Am I getting more intelligent? No. Do I feel healthier? No. But I'm alive. I'm discovering new things all the time. Lots of things to be sort of like happy about. So with the shout outs there, we might as well then move into the what they've actually been commenting in any questions they come out. They're not in any order. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody. And the first one that comes up is, let me just click, Denny. Chapter and verse coming up. It says, hello, my friend. Hope the aches and pains are easing up for you. Currently in agony with my shoulder. Time for another injection, I think. Could your dizziness have anything to do with vertigo? Seems strange, even with your meds for blood pressure, you're still getting dizzy. Well, it's something that I looked up, actually, and I actually mentioned to you, Denny. I read up because the reason I looked it up is because I feel more dizzy when I'm sleeping on my right-hand side when I'm in bed, and when I'm moving, getting out and up out of a chair and down, which gives an indication of vertigo. But apparently there is something called ear crystals in your ear. Now, I didn't know about this. And apparently they help with balance. Now, to reset the balance, you need to do a procedure that the doctors will do, but you can actually do it at home. Apparently what you're supposed to do is sit up on your bed, then move your head to the right, and then lay back. And, you know, obviously the room will start to spin. But it will go away generally after about 30 seconds. You have to sort of ride the storm. Then you need to center your head and lift yourself back up. And then you have to move your head to the left and then lie back again for another 30 seconds. If you're dizzy, fine, just let it ride. You ride the storm again. If you're not, then you know, of course, it's just that one side. You then correct your head again, looking up, sit back up, and stay there for 30 seconds. And that should correct your balance. And if it doesn't, you might need to do it a number of times. Now, I do know that, you know, balance can be affected by your inner ear. You can have ear infections, all sorts of stuff. I've cleaned my ear. I've used, olive oil type liquid in my ear to soften up any ear wax. That can also take away any inflammation if you poke your ear or you move your finger into your ear at any time or whatever. So it should help. And I've done that maneuver a couple of times. It has helped a little bit because when I now sleep on my right hand side, it's dizzy for about 10 seconds and goes away. It used to be 30 seconds and nearly up to a minute. I think it is like a vertigo relation, but I haven't got really any big problems with heights, and I've had to put things in the attic and go up ladders and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know. If it continues, I will sort of like continue to see the doctor on it, but I'm more concerned about my back and leg. You can still see I shift about a little bit in this chair. I've even actually, what I haven't done today is pump my chair back up and got this sort of pump that pushes the sturdiness into the lower part of my back. Anyway, we'll continue. I miss the old Christmas party mood at work, and to be honest, I get money these days, mate, as I'm hard to buy for, no doubt like yourself. I'd rather have it that way, as I can get what I want. Yeah, and like I said, I looked at it. It's just that you see so many people opening presents. Sometimes you just wish, doesn't anybody know what my favourite hobbies are? That they, if they want to do something, that they don't just give a token present because they don't want you to have nothing to open. And so a tin of biscuits or some socks or whatever will do. It don't want to sound disingenuous because I'm not. It's just that, say, you accept it with your mother because she's 82 years old. But, basically for me to go out and buy my mother her present, you spend, 150, 160 quid. And then what you get back is an envelope with £100. You just think to yourself, well, that's paid for part of the present that I bought you. No thought, no nothing. It just goes straight back into the bank. What was the point in that? That's a skeptical, horrible thing to do. But in your head, when you're depressed or in a low place, those are the things that do go through your brain. I'm glad I'm on the other side of it. To me, it's now all thrusters forward and warp speed towards getting through this year. So the less said about it, the better, really. You continue. Interestingly, you mentioned the BBC disc image Steve's got. Been after that everywhere. Mentioning Steve, I'm with him on religion. The sooner you banish it from life, it becomes richer, purer, and better. Yeah, and obviously two planes of thought on this. So many wars have been started that are religious based. So I can only sort of agree, really. I'm like you. I have a virtual full skybox to be emptied of programs to watch. So little time, so many things to see. Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we've had a bumpy year of things to record. It's just that I've had the Q box now for 2 years, and I've still got stuff from 2 years ago. You just don't get round to it, or you just go, I'm not in the mood to watch that. Or sometimes it can be, I like that so much, I want to keep it. So, yeah, I must sort of empty it a bit more. It's at now 92%. So I did get it down 8%. And by the way, when you consider it's a pretty big drive in these queues, they compress the data an awful lot. I have got through a heck of a lot. Thanks for answering my question. You'll think this strange, but I would have took the rubber keyboard off my Spectrum to play games. I found it an absolute must back then to control things on the screen. Much better than a C64 computer for that. For me, some games are more suited to a keyboard than a joystick. This is where I'll sort of disagree. I mean, I was around when I played on the Auric 1, which was awful keyboard. I actually touched the Atari 400 membrane keyboard. That was bloody awful. The ZX80 and 81 were membrane, bloody awful. The rubber keyboard was a spongy mess. Didn't like it. The Travelator keyboard that you got on a Commodore 64, the Dragon 32, the BBC, the Atari 800, they seemed such high class back then. And once you touched one of them, you just felt, yeah, this is the way to type. And at school, we even had Commodore PETs and Apple IIe's. So, and they had proper keyboards. So when you're presented with a little square box that's rubber and you touched it and it felt like the top of your pencil, you know, we used to have pencil toppers that had rubbers in them. You just go, nah, this is not nice. But it's like anything, you get used to it. If that was the only thing that you had, then you never had a problem with it. It's all down to that. And I suppose I just count myself lucky that after I built my ZX80, after I bought my ZX81, I moved on to a VIC-20. And I just fell in love with that keyboard. And when you consider I went then from a VIC-20 to a Commodore 64, then I had that style of keyboard for probably the longest period of time. You know, at that point, you know, that's a good 6-7 years of my life with that keyboard. It just became sort of like an extension of your fingers. And you continue. Again, I'm agreeing with Ian. The X-Files was an amazing program on the Fox network, though it did go off the boil. It didn't finish too bad at season 4. When it made its comeback, though, it was absolutely awful. Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about the X-Files. Ian has now done his review of the couple of episodes of season 1. I've got them all on Blu-ray in a big box set, huge box. It's like this. And I remember fondly the comics, the trading cards, the news on it, the waiting for the next season to start. Oh, so much. I think it went off the boil for me when Mulder left. And it just didn't seem the same the last 3 or 4 seasons. He obviously came back. But there was a couple of films that were in there as well that we mustn't forget. There were 2, if I remember rightly. I bought one of them on Laserdisc. So yes, it was a pretty big part of my life too. Loved LFC's question on your favourite comedy film. Personally, I love Porky's, a laugh a minute with seaside humour. Yes, and you know what? Whenever I mention either Naked Gun or Airplane, when I'm in the little chat rooms and somebody has asked a similar question, Porky's has come up. That and American Pie. I remember Porky's well. My sister got it out because she was a bit older, watched it and laughed a lot. Some of the humour was very sexual, so I got most of it because of the Carry On films and the innuendos. But of course, Kim Cattrall, I think, was in it. She was one of the teachers, and let's say she had a funny mating call, shall we? And let people watch the film for themselves. Planet of the Apes, originals are the best. Have no interest in the new versions, past one viewing. Yeah, a little bit harsh, I think, but each to their own. I do like them. I have watched them more than once. The original is always the best. The first one is an absolute classical masterpiece of a film. Never will change, in my opinion and in my lifetime. But there is lots to like in the new ones. It's not one of those ones where they've done it just for to bring a series back from the dead. You know, I don't think it ever really went away. It's always been in the conscious to do another film. I remember just before Tim Burton did his, that they were thinking about bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger in as a lead role for a new Planet of the Apes film, and it was going to be done by James Cameron. So yeah, there was lots of talks. So you continue. It's a bit hard sometimes to read all this. Some crap things out of crackers. And you remember the red bendy fish you put into your palm and it bends due to the heat? No, I don't remember them. I do remember this sticky octopus type thing that when you chucked it at the window, it used to crawl down the window because it would lose its stickiness, and the tentacles would make it grab when it starts to fall. And it sort of crawled down the window pane. I remember that. Those were little toys in the 70s. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about any of the 4K releases from James Cameron. I believe the print was a test version, which was done for streaming. The physical release will be stop on. Okay. So from what I've heard, it's not a matter of it won't get done. It's a matter of that James Cameron, and quite rightly the studio, are so proud of the product that they don't believe another cut should be done or made. It'll be very easy to do. There'll be lots more conversations about this. Whichever way you look at it, I can order it abroad. So I'm not concerned. It's just, what a stupid argument. And why is it the same argument that we had back when it first came out? Silly, really. We've moved on. Nice way to end the stream with the story of Magda and the dog. Wonderful story to end the year. Yes, and I've looked and there hasn't been any more videos. I dare say she's looking after the little dog called Rebel. I wish her well. Don't know whether she's even knows that I'm talking about her. She used to comment. I dare say she's a very, very busy lady. She is a nurse as well. So Happy New Year to her. Question for this week. What is your thoughts on the rise of Vampire Survivor and clone games, Death Must Die and Pathfinder Galaspire Survivors, and how they took over the indie scene? You continue, what do you think made them popular, and what indie games are you looking forward to this year? Wow. Well, it's been asked before, and I've always turned round and said that sometimes the simplest of games are the simple ones. I've always been under the mantle that you don't need to have fantastic graphics to have a great game. We've had stuff in the arcades from years and years ago that never had anything near the finesse of what we have now. Most of the time it was about the fun aspect, the controls, and the game itself. Vampire Survivors, I think, works because when it first came out, it was a very, very cheap game. It looked like nothing, but there was something about it where you were just moving around. You weren't even controlling the fire, that gripped you and said, how long can I survive for? That was the question. It's the only question in the game. How long can I survive with this limited control method? And they just built upon it until it became a behemoth of a game. Now, there are so many of them now that it should now have its a special genre in itself, rather than call it a roguelike action top-down whatever game. So I do believe it should now have a separate genre for it. I haven't played many of the new ones because I had so many after a while, and I was doing my own streams on them and doing my own videos on them, that people were starting to say, you're the Vampire Survivor guy. This is just in jest in our Discord channel. I'm not that huge a presence on the internet that that I am the Vampire Survivor man. It's just that that's what I was doing so much of, and I was bringing newer games to attention. And maybe it was because I was lucky that the ones I was choosing were the ones that actually were quite good, because for every good one, there are 5 bad ones. You've mentioned 2 other ones there. One of them I bought for you for Christmas. Thank you so much for letting me do that. Um, one of those, I had a free code given to me, and I've just put it into Steam for me to play. So yes, I'll be going down that route of looking at that again. And of course, Vampire Survivors continues to grow, and it's had some new content just before Christmas as DLC. And every time they do DLC, it's never above £2, so it's incredibly cheap. And for the amount of hours that you get out of it, it's just a total behemoth of a game. And you've put, cheers, my friend, and as always, pass on my regards to your mother. Take care. Of course I will. Thank you so much. Danny, you're a wonderful supporter of my channel. I'm really looking forward to doing some more live things with you this, I think we'll be doing one this month. So I wish you well. I hope your shoulder gets better. And I'll speak to you very, very soon. Thank you so much. I don't think I missed anything there. No, I didn't. So we'll move on now to Ian. Just have a little drink. And he starts. Hi, Del. Enjoyed your blog as always. Hope your back is continuing to improve and your mum is doing okay. It's been a reflective period of time, especially with the 9th of January approaching, the 5th anniversary of my dad's death. It still feels strange that fate or random forces made it so close to my wife dying on Boxing Day 2018. I rang my brother up and I haven't spoken to him for a while. We ended up talking for over an hour, reminiscing about my dad and our childhoods. We talked a lot about films and music. We talked about all the concerts we had seen, which reminded me of artists I have seen live. Between us, we had seen so many artists, many big names, and at various points in their careers. I loved it. It brought back to me how close we were as children growing up together. It was exactly what I needed, the power of reminiscing and sharing our passions. I felt so much better for it. I realised why YouTube is a good place to be for me. Seeing those who simply want to share their passions. I think your Vblog connects because you're able to tap into nostalgia, give us that sense of wonder and excitement. Well, such kind words. Thank you so much, Ian. Like I say, I watch your channel. It's sort of like hypnotic. You've got one of those sort of voices where I can sort of like just listen and go, oh, right, yeah, I didn't know that, that sort of thing. Even if it's just reinstating what I already know. But it's always bad to sad to hear about deaths. Your story is unique in the fact that you told us that your dad died literally weeks after your mother died, and they were all within a couple of weeks of each other and all around the Christmas period. So, it's great that you found solace in your brother. I tried to do that with my sister, but it's very difficult with my sister. She's very forthright, she's never apologetic. She'll never turn around and say she's wrong. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that means that she's always saying that she's always right. It's just that we don't talk about the things that broke us up as a brother and sister type thing. We were never that close anyway. I think she always thought of me as an embarrassment because she was always trying to be with the hip crowd at school. And so having a little brother who's 18 months younger than her was probably a chore and a pain to her. But we've grown up, and that's where you have to I'm the sort of person who puts their hand up, you see, and say, I'm in the wrong. I always see the other person's side. I suppose that's that service desk person in me, that was always willing to want to help and always understanding that if I've given a bad piece of advice, that it's my own stupid fault that I did that. It's just in me all the time. Empathy is always there. The good news from a personal point of view is that my legs are at long last healing. The nurses who come in twice a week are pleased. The pain has become less of a problem too. After about 4 years, they have found a treatment that appears to be working. Of course, being diabetic, everything is so slow at healing. I'm aware too that the chances are at some time in the future the sores and bad pain will return. However, I'm going to appreciate being pain-free and having some freedom in being able to walk. So a new year offers hope, and I'm happy to have that. Yeah, good for you. And I'm so glad that you're in less pain. I won't say you've got no pain, because I know that there's always pain there. It's how we control it in our minds. But, you know, it's so, when you've had it for so long, it's almost like a buzzing in your head. It's like a tingle that's always there. And so it becomes so easy for it to come into the foreground, you know, right in front of your face. You continue. My question for you this week is, if there is one big thing you could change in your life now, what would it be? Best wishes to you, and try and have a great time, grand time. One big thing you could change in your life now, what would it be? Well, other than bringing my dad back, I'm not going to think about me. It would be for my mother to be happy again. She's happy, but what I mean by that is she spends her time looking out the window, watching people go by. She wants to speak to people as they go past, because not many people come and see her. Her health has not been brilliant. We go from one thing to another in regards to health. I do believe my mother is sort of like that one foot in the grave type person at the moment. It's just a waiting game for it to go, and when it happens, great. And that's not a nice thing to say, but at 82, with my dad gone now over 7 years, I do feel that she just lives now day to day. There's nothing to really live for. It's almost like giving up the ghost, and I don't want that, you know, but it's how my mum wants to live her life, and it's very difficult for me to sort of like change that. So with that, I'm going to say salute to you. I've just gone and pressed the button and got rid of the comments, so you'll have to bear with me a minute. And we move on to the next one. Thank you so much, Ian. So we moved to gaming since the 70s now. That's my mate Steve. You know, we do my salute to Steve. Yeah. He's one of my great friends, and I love his comments to bits. So what's he put this time? He said, "Hi Del, great blog as always, and thanks for answering my questions." Just going to put this on here for a minute. I've been somewhat of a funny week for me. In fact, I wasn't even aware it was Friday until a few hours ago. I guess I'm just not with it. First, I'd like to say I wish you and your mum a lovely happy new year, and I hope it's a good one for both of you. Personally, I'd be very happy for a quiet year with low hassles and stress. The way my brain works, I see Christmas as a celebration, meaning, yes, I've survived another year. And when the new year kicks in, I'll be honest, I can get quite depressed and worried about what the coming year will dish up for me and my family. I need to stop being depressing now and throw questions at you. Here we go. Well, before we go into the questions, I'll just say yes, and I agree with you a little bit, Steve, that I feel sort of like similar, that Christmas is just the end of the year, and there is trepidation in looking forward at the next year, especially if you've had a particularly bad one. The last 2 years for me have been bad work-wise, and when you consider work-wise is a good, you know, half to 3/4 of your day each day for 5 days a week, 52 weeks in the year. So, of course, it's a huge chunk of time. Then you need a good work life. If it's miserable all the time, then it's not a nice place. So yeah, you've got some questions for me. If you have to pick and only play either 2D games or 3D games, which would you pick and why? Oh wow! For so long, I wanted 3D games. I'd seen so many games of little blocks moving around the screen, and little blocks then turn into little men, and little men that animated, and then little birds that animated, all in patterns and 2D. That I was going, wow, wouldn't it be great if this was like the real world, and I was the person with this gun, and these bats were coming at me, and I could fire at them at all these different angles, rather than just flat, just moving across the plane in front of my face. And then when 3D came along, it was so hard to program and so hard to make it look great that it took another probably decade before we got anything resembling what I was thinking about back then. And that's taking Elite and all sorts of other things out of the equation. But because 2D has always been there, even when 3D wasn't there, I suppose I'm going to answer 2D. You can now have what they call 2.5D, which is 3D graphics on a 2D background, or 3D background with a 2D graphic. And they look really, really beautiful and nice and have that old look about them. It's sort of like the mesh of 2D and 3D, if you see what I mean. If the two had got together and had a baby, you know what I mean? Like I say, for so many years I wanted 3D games. I looked forward to playing Star Wars in the arcades with all those vector graphics. I looked forward to getting home and playing Elite with all those vector graphics. As we moved on and we had textured graphics, I wowed at Tomb Raider and, Soul Reaver, Legacy of Kain, and a number of others. And then Doom and Quake, and the list goes on in what 3D has brought to us. But 2D's always been there, and I love 2D. So I'm going to say 2D, and that's a strange one for me because I thought my answer would be 3D. There we go. It is what it is, Steve. Question 2. What game made in the past 20 or so years deserved to be a huge success, but it wasn't? Wow. There's a number of games that I know were failures, but they weren't failures in my eyes. Let me give you an example. The Dreamcast lasted for 2.5 years? And during its life cycle, 2 games came out for it, and they took the whole development cycle of the Dreamcast to actually come out. I think you know what I'm talking about now. It's Shenmue and Shenmue 2. Huge open world behemoth of games. Came on multiple discs, 3 or 4 discs for a game console. But it was a commercial failure. And it's a commercial failure because it had a huge development cost. And the platform that it was on didn't have a big enough user base. So it should have been a success. It was a success. But it was a commercial failure. So does that answer part of the question? Because the other one that comes to mind is another console game called Titanfall 2. Now that one's well known. Titanfall 2 had everything bad that could happen. They got the release date wrong. It was released between 2 other behemoth games. It was an exclusive only to one console for a long part of its life, which meant that the other half of the community couldn't play it. That's the PlayStation couldn't play it. Oh yeah, everything that could go wrong went wrong. It wasn't a disaster in the way that the game was crap. It's just, like I say, bad marketing, bad release timing, bad decisions made on on who gets the exclusive rights to this game, all sorts of stuff. So Titanfall 2 comes to mind. Can't really think of any others really at the moment, but I think those two are pretty much good answers for you. And all I can say to you is thank you very much, Steve. We'll come across, I'll talk about you a little bit more when we get to what I've been watching this week. So we move forward and we get to Down the Rabbit Hole. Yeah, brilliant. Happy New Year, Del, you've put. My mum is also in her early 80s and I'm very glad she's still with me. That's a valuable Christmas present on its own. And it was. I mean, if my mum wasn't here, it'd been awful. I was living in the UK when The Abyss was in the cinema. And I always assumed we never saw the rat being submerged. That is until I returned to Canada and saw the film again on video, and it very much surprised me. I can understand where the UK censors are coming from, but I think you're right that James Cameron really ought to stick to his guns and not cut it again. Here's a couple of VR topics for you. I read an article where some independent game developers were discussing the struggle to bring games to the PSVR 2. I believe this was the folks who made Green Hell VR. They mentioned that they use Unity to make their games, as do most developers, and the foveated rendering that PSVR 2 uses is not in the standard Unity kit. Developers have to pay more for that feature to be part of their engine. As a result, games for PSVR 2 either don't have, I can't pronounce that, is it foveated rendering, or it's only top tier games that tier game makers like the folks behind No Man's Sky who can spend the time and money to do that. We end up with less impressive releases on the PSVR 2, essentially due to license costs. Who do you think? What do you think? Does that mean Quest is going to win the VR race? And as a secondary VR question or topic, and thoughts on First Contact Entertainment, the folks behind Firewall, shutting their studio just before Christmas. Yes, I did hear about that studio falling over. I didn't know too much about the Unity thing. I didn't watch that video that you're talking about, so I'm going to look out for that video because I usually watch an awful lot of those sort of things because they're in my face all the time. You know, when I'm watching YouTube is my discovery of games writing, new consoles, new games coming out, etc., etc., etc. So obviously, if you've got a piece of hardware and they want you to use a particular piece of kit to write for it, you do restrict yourself. Whose fault was that other than possibly Sony's hardware developers? I do know that First Contact Entertainment, they came out with two games, I think. They've been around for about 8 years. They blamed the closing of their studio down to no support in the VR industry. And I wonder what that actually means, because I don't know how much support Meta and the Oculus range give their software developers. I know that they'll give them kit for free, like headsets and so forth. But do they give them any monetary for putting it on their shop or anything like that? Possibly very little. I think the gaming community as a whole suffers on the fact that it doesn't get too much support. You have to be sort of like tied down to the actual hardware developers themselves to get any support at all, such as Rare back in the day. They were bought by Nintendo and then later on bought by Microsoft. When you've got two big names that buy your company, then you've got clout and you've got money. But how much money you get as a third party developer developing for a platform, yeah, that maybe they should get more than just a headset. Maybe they should get some more than just royalty, some assistance. But when it comes to the hardware, you suffer on the fact that that's what you've got to live with. Everybody's had to live with that. I mean, anybody who wrote for the Commodore 64 had to live with the fact that you can only have so many colors. You know, you can only have so much memory. So of course, you know, you're not going to get, you have to do what you can with the tools that are there. But so many game houses have had to write their own engines. That's the thing, and it's in some ways the PlayStation and is in a good place because you've got the Unity engine, and that's what seems to be everybody is using to develop for that platform, from what you're saying. So yeah, it's a complex question, but I will say that it's very sad to hear of a company's demise. I never played those two games, by the way. I do think that people believe that there is a war, you know, that Meta are in war with Sony and are at war with Valve and everything else, when actually they've all developed immaculate VR headsets and should be working together to promote VR, because they've done an amazing thing. The only things that they should be battling for really is for you to get their headset. The tools and everything, I hope, or I wished, would be a combined thing, you know, that I take it that Unity will work on the Oculus, you know, the Meta 3. I've never really looked that closely at it, but I think I possibly will after this. So interesting. I hope I've answered parts of your question on that one. And like I say, I'm hoping you're nearer to making your decision. I've made my decision on the camera, by the way, that you asked me months and months and months ago, and I'm just saving up now for the body for it. The body over Christmas actually dipped just below the £1,000 mark, but I still didn't have £1,000 to buy it, and now the price has gone back up. But that's not to say that there isn't going to be another sale where it will drop below that 1,000. I will have that money, and I will buy that camera. So I'm looking forward to that. So we move forward, and many happy new year to you and your channel. Such a great channel, by the way. I'll talk a little bit about what he's been doing this week. Brilliant. And we move to Colin Jones, our friend Ponder. And he states, I honestly really enjoyed the Doctor Who Christmas special. For me, it shows promise for a new era. That's fine. I even said it myself. I said, it's just not for me. I think for every person who turns round like me and says, you know, it wasn't great, you've got kiddies and other people that think, no, that was great. That's because a show like this has got such a big history, and it depends on what you're on, how that history has shaped you, and how much emphasis on how you want it to continue to be than it is for you. I battle with that all the time with my comic reading of Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man never had a mobile phone when I was reading it. There was nobody flashing their camera and watching him swing by. It was always like a big spectacle that Spider-Man was swinging by, and you go, oh, look up in the sky, look, there's a man, look, swinging on a web. You know, that's what you were reading. If you've got a camera, you know, you can basically just take a photograph of it, and you've got it for life. It would become less of a thing. So you can imagine new readers have always known that Spider-Man could be took with a mobile camera. My era of Spider-Man, there was no such thing. You know, he had to have a camera himself, Peter Parker, to take photographs of himself battling for the newspapers, because it was so hard to take a picture of him. Like I say, if he's swinging across New York every day, how many people have got mobile phones and cameras now? I'm going a bit deep, a bit off topic, and to be quite honest, I was just trying to give you that you have to modernize, you have to move forward. It's just not for me. Printers. I'll be talking about them, specifically the DRM crap, in my next Vlog. I'm going to bite the bullet with this latest instant ink price hike until next year, when I'm going to buy an all-in-one colour laser printer next year, and it'll be a brother, because they don't insist on using branded carts toners, HP and SMD. Oh, that's all I'm going to say there. HP and SMD. Yeah, very much so. We used to use Brothers at work for portable printing. They used to make these lovely little small portable printers with a little toner cartridge, and they weighed next to nothing, and because they were toner, they printed out lovely, and they also were very inexpensive, and they lasted a lot longer. Inkjets are terrible, to be quite honest. You'd think that black ink was like mining for gold. You know, it is ridiculous in its price. I probably wouldn't wait a year though, but I just don't print that often anymore. Even though I only go to work once a week, you know, into an office, I can say I can go through the whole of the week not printing anything. And then if I do need to print anything, I can wait until I get to that week and then print it off then. I'm so glad that I'm in that situation. For me, I need to scan and manipulate images and all that sort of stuff all the time. So scanning is more important than printing to me. But yeah, printing is such a hot topic. It's great. I think it needs bringing up more often on how we've moved forward with printing. Does everybody have a printer that's got a PC these days? You know, maybe that's a good question to ask Alan and myself as a topic. So you continue. We had cheap Christmas crackers this year, and I've just dumped most of the surprises. But my daughter also bought Stranger Things crackers, and each contains a pair of socks. No idea what she paid for them, though. I bet they were a pretty penny if they were Stranger Things as well. I wish I could turn those Twitch ads off completely, but I have them as an absolute minimum, which is just when you join the channel. Pain in the arse, but at least none during the stream after that initial hit. Yeah, Twitch just got on my nerves after a while, and I didn't get many alerts, and I kept missing things. I just thought to myself, would my life be hurt by me getting rid of Twitch altogether? And I just thought to myself, no, not really. But I do miss seeing you more often, if you see what I mean. It's one of the casualties of war, I suppose. And it's something that I can turn around if I wanted to, and maybe I will. I did drink, but not too much, because I had work on New Year's Day. We had a full roast meal before I left at 3:45 in the afternoon. This is future at time of writing, but past by the time you read this. Have to get a time travel thing in, don't you? Question for the next blog. Can you have too many audio mixers chained together? Question mark. I've just added a second to my setup. No. Let me answer that truthfully. If you can get away with one, great. If you need to, so be it. If a studio needs 45 banks of them, so it's what works and what makes you efficient. And the only thing about it is that if they do require power, then of course you are then using a lot more wattage around your house, and you know you're not saving the planet and all of that sort of stuff, and you would hope that one would be enough. There are many ways of mixing. You can do it through software, but in my opinion it's what works for you, matey. And if you needed 15 of them, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. It's what you do with it, how you do it, and how efficient it makes you. So that's how I look at that. And with that, thank you so much for your question. I think I've given a okay answer with that. I have to say that I do have a sound mixer myself. I can move the sound, to connect my keyboard, my piano keyboard, to my PC, which uses a mixer, and mix that and down mix into my PC. And I do all sorts of other stuff with my microphone. They all go through that mixer. Wasn't an expensive one. It was about, I think, £200. It's the amount of connections at the back, which makes it quite powerful. I could just, at a switch, just filter between several different inputs. Mine has 5. It's like my amp. And as I was explaining to Alan, I said my amp has got, I think it's, how many has it got? Yeah, it's got 8 HDMI ports. Now, you might think that's way too much, but at the end of the day, I'm going, but they're there when I want them. And everything can go through my amp as a central hub and pass through to the telly. Whatever floats your boat, really. So we move on. Thank you and Happy New Year, and I'm so looking forward to your blogs this year, my friend Colin. So we get to Wee Bob Art, approaching near the end now. All the best, Al, he says. Sitting drawing while listening along. All the best wishes for the year ahead, and I hope that all the things you mentioned come to pass. Rebel is now 30% off at the moment, so not full price, but definitely more expensive than it has been. I've also started using a new software on my Samsung tablet called Infinite Painter, which I am enjoying its capabilities as well as its simplistic user interface. Question: from movies to gaming, what is your favourite tagline? Oh God, taglines. E.g., EA Sports, it's in the game. I remember that one. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Yeah, I remember that one. 2. Who you gonna call? Yeah, Ghostbusters, GB. On every street in every city in this country, there is a nobody who dreams of being a somebody. Oh God, that's Taxi Driver. Yeah. I did a quick Google while writing this, so feel free to do the same. I think a few of my favourites might be, and you need to guess the movie based on the first letters that are given. Everyone Wants to Be Found. L-O-T. Lord of... That's not L-O-T, that's Lost in Translation. Ah, okay. The first casualty of war is innocence, that's Platoon, P. And finally, man is the warmest place to hide, TT. Oh, The Thing. Yeah. Anyway, all the best to you and your mums. You want a couple from me? Well, I've always, when I've mentioned taglines before, and I have mentioned them, I've always said Alien was my favourite one, which is in space, no one can hear you scream. I thought that was a brilliant tagline. There's a couple that come to mind. I remember Naked Gun, the first Naked Gun film, had a great tagline, but it's not really a tagline. I thought it was really just a joke. It was, if you only see one movie this year, then you ought to get out more. That was the tagline for that film, and it always made me laugh. Apollo 13 comes to mind. Houston, we have a problem. So with Alien, I think that's probably them all. But I think Chicken Run had a good one. Yeah, Chicken Run. Do you remember the Wallace and Gromit type Chicken Run film? I think their tagline was escape or die frying. That's it, frying chicken. Yeah, I like that one. So thanks very much for that. That's brilliant. I do like taglines. Always found them funny. Brilliant. Then we've got Martroid. Oh, and a happy new year to you, wee baba. Where's my Spider-Man drawing? You miserable devil. You've now got Rebel and you still haven't done it. I'm only kidding. And I'll tell you what, guys, please go and watch his channel. The way he draws is incredible. I wish I was as gifted as that. My God. Oof. Just love. It would just be lovely that I was good at something imaginative. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I get by. You know, I know the drawing methods of drawing things, rudimentary shapes, circles, ellipses, blocks. You know, putting them together and you've got yourself, you know, I mean, I could be made up of an ellipse. There's a circle there, big circle there, and then, you know, you join those up and you've got the, you know, the bump, you know, that makes at the top of your head. You know, you work it out, you know, basically. Anyway, Martroid is next, and he's put, yes, it's already 2024 here, so happy new year, mate. With all the troubles and atrocities going on in places like the Ukraine and Gaza, I feel very grateful for my life I have, and wish everyone here in this wonderful little community all the best. Thank you so much, Martroid. I can't say that better than what you've just done, so I've read it out verbatim. Thank you so much, and I hope I continue to entertain this year, and I hope you continue to be around. It's so nice reading out your comments. They're very short to the point. Brilliant. And we've got the last comment, which is David Retro Games Play Badly. Very good supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for being around, David. And you continue. I'm keeping you company at work. Seem to do that a lot. Personally, I'm hoping to sleep through the fireworks tonight. Watched Sisu a couple of days ago. Really enjoyed it. Put the decorations away yesterday and enjoyed the live stream. Would have liked to have stayed longer. Don't tell anyone, but I was sent back from the future. Brilliant. Why would you need any bits from the other terrible 8-bit computers? Oh yeah, because we were talking about the bits and so forth. You're a Spectrum lover, aren't you? Nothing wrong with the Spectrum. What you put, the Spectrum was and still is 8-bit perfection. No, I think at some point somebody's got to put you right a little bit. Not perfection, but a great machine, and that will never go away. How can it be perfect? How can you turn around and say that keyboard was perfect? You know, it's, you can say that the case was perfect or every port was just what it needed. No. There were so many things. So I will take away from the perfection part. Out of the PS1 games in the question, I would go with Tomb Raider, mainly because I hate Metal Gear Solid, right? Yeah, I had 3 games, didn't I, to choose from. Each of them had a standout selling point. And I went with Metal Gear Solid purely because it did combine 3D and stealth. But all of the others, Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy VII, were both equally fantastic. You would not be wrong in choosing any one of the others, to be quite honest. The only decent thing I've ever got out of a Christmas cracker would be the hat. I suit a crown. Yes, you do. You are king, matey. Thank you so much. And thanks for the company. No, and thank you so much for listening to my crap, because that's pretty much what it is. And with that, we've come to the end of the questions. Wow. So what do we do after that? Well, what I usually do is have another little bit of a drink, and then we talk about what we watched on YouTube. There wasn't a very much. Now, just remember, we're still in that new period of Christmas. Everybody, I think, is still stuffed full of Christmas dinner and New Year dinner and preparing to go back to work, which means that there's less content from people. So this week in retro, there was nothing yesterday. they did their end of year thing the week before, and of course, for them to do their This Week in Retro would have meant that they needed to have been in between Christmas and New Year's. So, of course, nothing. Techmoan did bring something out. He did the Stereo Teflon KC4, which, believe it or not, and it's very hard for me to say this, is a stylus tape player. What do I mean by that? You know, on a tape player, it's got a head, and the tape goes across the head, and it reads the information off of that head. This is a tape player, and on the tape, it's got grooves, and it's got a needle, and it plays the sound from this looped tape that's got grooves. It's the only way I can sort of explain it, really. Developed in the 50s. They made a stereo version in the mid-60s, but they only made a limited number of them, and then the company went. You know, obviously people then just want record players or tape players. They didn't want a hybrid in-between thing. So it's a brilliant episode to watch because I'm looking at a piece of technology that's now dead, but what I hadn't really thought about. And it was brilliant. Apparently they're really expensive now to buy on eBay. It took him 8 years to find one of those stereo ones. It took 8 years of eBay watching, you know. So what else did I watch? I watched Just Jamie. Just Jamie was announcing that the Amiga Game Selector, or AGS 2.5, has just been released and is 13 gig in size. What is this game selector? Well, it's like a very large hard drive image, which is 13 gig in size now. The original hard drive image for games has sort of like been rewritten. They've taken the best bits of it, developed a new front end for it, but they've now made it so that you can patch it in the same way that you can patch MAME, i.e. you don't have to download the whole ROM set again to get the new bits. You can just patch and inject the bugs and fixes in it. My question in the Discord group today was, would that work on the Mister? For which the answer I got was an unlikely one. But you can get this Amiga Game Selector for free at 13 gig download. And it will work on a true Amiga. It will work on a Raspberry Pi. It will work on an Amiga Mini. And it will work on WinUAE as emulation on a PC. What it didn't say is whether it would work on a Mister, whether it would work on a PAL Kiddie, handheld, etc., etc. Which meant that it was difficult for me to know, is that image worth downloading, because I use the Mister now. But I do have a Amiga Mini. It's on the wall here. It's rarely switched on. And I could just download the image for that and it wouldn't be a waste, would it? So that's something that I'm going to be doing in the next week. So that's Just Jamie, if you want to look for that. And it's called the Amiga Game Selector 2.5 or AGS 2.5. Then I watched Cult of Mush. He did his end of Steam sale roundup. The Steam sale ended on January 4th. So, of course, during this week, I have looked to see if there's anything remotely that I'm interested in before the sale ends. So, of course, that's been on my YouTube selection. Then I moved on to the Provoked Prawn. That's the name of the channel, the Provoked Prawn. The reason I watched that was because, as you know, my mouse died. Right? My mouse died, and the money for the new one was going to cost me an arm and a leg. It was going to be the Razer Viper. It was at the time 120 quid. It's now gone. It went down to £100 over Christmas, and then 4 days ago, it went up to £146. So I priced myself out of it. I should have bought it, but I didn't. But with my mother giving me my birthday present early, she gave me £20. And with my Christmas money that I got from a friend of mine, Mainmeister, I finally settled on the Razer Basilisk Ultimate, which is a similar sort of thing, only it's not ambidextrous, so you can't. It's always a right-handed mouse. Here it is here, and it's in all its glory. It's a lovely thing. I don't know if you can see. The selling point to me was this little paddle. Don't know if you can see it, but there's a little paddle there. It's like a shift key. So I hold that in and I use my fingers on the top. So I've got not only a left click, but I've got shift and left click, shift and right click, plus right click, plus the two buttons on the side, plus the DPI that I can adjust at the top. And there is a wheel strengthener where I can have resistance for the strength at the bottom. And of course it's wireless and wired. The wire can go into that hole there, and it can be a wired mouse, no lag. There is the, if I can get it in shot, the charging cradle. There we go. And that was £110, but with the birthday money and that, I only paid about 60 odd pounds for it. So in the end of the day, that was the best I could do for myself. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm so lucky to have people like Mainmeister and my mother looking out for me. It's the best thing that I got for myself. Wish I'd bought it over Christmas, really. It might have cheered myself up a little bit. So the reason I watched the Provoked Prawn is he did a video stream called Razer Viper Ultimate versus Basilisk Ultimate, and he himself came to the same conclusion, that little paddle was the swaying point. It weighs a little bit more, which is what he wanted. He thought the other one was too light, and that paddle was a lifesaver for him for some of the work that he was doing in. He was using 3D Studio. So yeah, brilliant. Very happy with it. Then I watched Worth a Buy. I don't watch an awful lot of him. He does make me laugh on quite a few occasions. But he did his Game of the Year and Worst of the Year, and they always make me laugh because he just swears about the game industry, what crap has been out, whether it's been a good vintage year for gaming. So that was quite funny. And then, because it was the end of the year as well, I watched Stu View TV. STU View TV. The stars that we have lost in 2023. Bit morbid, but it was great to see all their faces come up again with little clips of all our stars that we've watched, and say a fond farewell to them. So that's everything that I watched on YouTube, other than the film side of things, which I keep slightly separate. So of the ones I saw this week, I saw Rock God 2004, great friend of mine. He did a video Nasties part 3 and an upgrade to his video nasty list, which he'd got a 4K release of. Absolutely brilliant. The amount of information I've gained from knowing Rock God is pretty immense. I never really thought too much about the directors, the writers, and so forth when I was watching horror back in the 80s and 90s. And I've started to piece them all together now into a much better understood block of information, if you see what I mean. Then there was Did You See That? He did a live stream last night. He did a review of a film at the movies at the moment called Night Swim. I'm not going to say anything about that film other than watch his channel or go and see the film yourself. because I don't want to influence you and say whether it's a good film or a bad film. Look yourself. But always remember, go into a film open-minded anyway. Don't have to hear negatives or positives from anyone. And he did an end-of-year review. A lot of these have got end-of-year reviews, to be quite honest. So then we've got Ian Hill, The Ramblings. Oh, my God. No, he did an awful lot. He did his X-Files first episode review, Demon Seed review, best films of 2023, amongst other reviews of Doctor Who, Talons of Weng Chiang, I think there was. Like I say, Ian Hill, The Ramblings. He's got a lot of premieres coming up, which might make things a little bit difficult if you go to his channel and try to find something, because he's got things that are all lined up. But if you click on the video link, if you click on videos or live, you'll see them all separated, and you can see the back catalogue of stuff that's there, and it's immense. So do go and look there. And we've got Forgotten World of Movies. Brilliant. Love his channel. He did, like everybody, I think, a little bit, he did a sort of like what I picked up in December. And because it's December and Christmas, it includes gifts. So a lot of these ones that I talk about where I say they've done a unboxing or a gifts or whatever, do remember that that's going to be quite a big chunk of people's film channel chat, because that's all that anybody ever got for Christmas. It was like, oh, these are the films that people have sent me. Here's the things that I've bought myself. So we get to Euphoria pictures, and that's exactly the same. He showed off his Maniac 4K film, which he tried to give everybody in the community a heads up to, because this is a film which contains all of the whole of the series of films that Maniac falls under in 4K, but also with a bust from the film, an actual great big massive statue bust, and you could buy it at half price. So he was showing off that along with his top 4K films, etc. And we also have Friday Chat with Scott, the movie critic. Always entertaining on a Friday is Scott and his panel of guests, and they're talking all about the films that they've seen and answering the questions from the chat channel. So that was everything that I watched on YouTube that doesn't come under my own subscribers and my own people that I follow, in the computer and film industry. So, like I say, we come to your YouTube. And we start off with, as I always do, Down the Rabbit Hole. So Down the Rabbit Hole again had a nice quiet Christmas, and then brought out two videos. One was labelled No Man's Sky Gun. No, it's just a vacuum. So he tried to tie the two things up. He had bought a portable vacuum blower, is the best way to call them. They're sort of like just like air canisters, but electronic. So if you ever tried to clean the inside of your PC with one of them air dusters, why do that when you could have an electrical vacuum cleaner that doesn't suck, it blows? He bought one that's charged by USB and is a Hoover and a blower. And it looked just like the gun that he's got in No Man's Sky. So that was a brilliant little video. He put on a lot of his acting abilities into those videos. And then he showed off a little missile command cabinet. I don't know if you've seen these, but they're sort of like 11 or 12 inches tall, full missile command cabinets. They've got a little coin slot, they've got the bezel, they've got the controls miniaturized, a USB socket round the back. They've got the screen as a little LCD screen, and some of them have even got bezels. So he bought his latest one, which is Missile Command, which goes with his Tempest and trying to think what the other one was. Was it Gallagher? Could be. Not sure. So he's got Tempest Missile Command and one other. And it had come down from $159 to $100. And he was quite impressed with it. And I thought it was quite good because it actually had the trackball. For me, I'd love them if I had the room, but I've got no room. The other thing about them is they're bloody expensive. I have to say, the £100 or $100 is the maximum I'd ever want to pay for one. But they're $159. And I looked on eBay because the one that I'd have bought, if I had the money, would have been the Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts collection set, which was 2 of them, each one having one game on each. But they were $159 each, which made them like $320 odd. And on eBay, the cheapest one to buy is $499. Because you can't get them anymore and they're sold out. So a very expensive hobby, one that I'd never belittle or laugh at. But my God, do you need some cash for them? Wow. Definitely worth a watch, by the way. Then we've got Gaming Since the 70s. My mate Steve. Steve, my salute to him, as I always do. He did a Christmas special Odyssey 2 games, a Christmas special MSX games, a Happy New Year arcade games, and then came out with a disclaimer saying it might be difficult for him to do videos in the new year because of a few internal problems. And for that, I wish you well, Steve. You're going to be missed if you don't. I hope you can do some things on your PC to give us that great entertainment you've always given us. And I hope everything works out well for you this year, my friend. Thank you so much. Come back quickly if you can. Then we get Robert's Retro Gaming. So that interesting thing about Robert this week was he finally accepted my Steam game and he played it for an hour, and it was fun to watch, just like it was fun to watch Steve when I bought it for him earlier this year, on the mistakes that you can make or your learning ability with this game. And it was just brilliant to watch. He looked like he was having a ball with it. I will say that. I don't think he was disgusted by it. And it fit in well with all of the stuff that I watched of his this week. He did another of his Euphoria range of games. So this is part 10 and 11 of a game from his Steam library called Euphoria. He played Ori and the Blind Forest Part 2. That was a gift that Steve gave him, and he did a Part 2 to it. He carried on with his Minecraft. He's now up to episodes 97 and 98 of the Exile series. And lots and lots of 8-bit reviews, on the old Atari 8-bit. So a massive amount of respect, a massive amount of output from Robert. You'll be stupid not to go to that channel and watch. Brilliant. Happy New Year to you, Robert. And we move to Seb's Place. Oh, by the way, Robert, I expect to see improvement in part 2 of Dome Keeper. No, if you don't do a part 2, it's fine. But I'm so glad you liked it. That's all that mattered to me. Seb's Place, yes. He did a best Spectrum cover tape ever. Interesting concept. So this is at the later end of Crash Magazine and all those magazines out there. Magazines used to put discs on the front, but they also did tapes for the old 8-bits. Seb looked at all of the tapes and decided to say what was the best game ever given on a tape for the Sinclair Spectrum only. Interesting watch. It wasn't the game I thought it would be either. And like I say, the production values on it, immense. Fantastic. That's a must watch. Then we've got David's Retro Games Played Badly, my friend David, who I talked about earlier on. He did a Christmas retro pickups and another video, I think, which was to wish everybody Happy New Year and so forth. Absolutely brilliant videos. He well deserves that can of Stella that he's drinking every time that he does his videos. Such a patient man. If you look at his collection, it's a huge collection. I'm telling you now, it's incredible. It's all laid at the back of him. He's just so knowledgeable on the subject, so passionate about it, and then he'll even give tips on what to avoid. The trappings that he's fell into. Don't do the same for yourself. So, what a nice person. Such a great site. Definitely watch that. Then we come to the last couple, LFC Gamer and Vlog. He did a video called YouTube Sort It Out, Will Ya? Where a number of things are happening for him on YouTube, like comments disappearing and all that sort of stuff, that he wants them to sort it out as quickly as possible. Here. And I wish they would, because I'll tell you what, the amount of comments that I've had drop, how my channel is presented to others, just it's a mess at the moment from YouTube. The chat is broken on a lot of people's sites. It's just atrocious. And then we get to Colin Jones, my mate Colin Jones, or should I say Ponder. He did a brief review of 2023, which was absolutely spot on. I couldn't have said it better myself. And of course, he continues to do his work on Twitch, and we're not too far away, I would say, from him giving us this month's blog, and many more high score kerfuffles to come. And that's the end of all of my notes for my stream, other than I usually show you what I've bought. And as I told you before, we're in that weird period where there's nothing I bought apart from this book. And this book is going to be so difficult to show you, because it is a series of books that I've got, and it's the largest books I've ever got. It comes in its own box. This is the book. No word of a lie. This is the size of it. Right, there it is. And I'll just get it out quickly. Ooh, and it is the artist edition of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. What are these books? Now, there's the back of the book. And it's a bloody expensive book, I can tell you that now. I've got many of these books. They're mostly, though, by my favourite artist, John Romita Sr. By the way, Todd McFarlane did that Spider-Man up there. What they are is when you draw a comic book, you draw it on a drawing board, piece of paper, you square it all off, you draw the panels. When the page is finished, that goes off to whoever the company is, say Marvel, and they finish it off with inking, colouring. It's then photostatted down to the size of the comic book that we live with today. The size of a comic book. There. So you can see much smaller. Most of the artwork, once it's printed and reproduced, the artwork is never really returned to the artist, or it wasn't. It was sold, and the money was given to charity or to the artist or to the company itself. Because so much of this artwork is now in people's private collections, IDW, the people who made that book, decided to pick on particular artists of note. So that would be like John Romita, Todd McFarlane, Gene Colan, all the greats. So get all of these greats artworks together, and bring back the comics as if they were just drawn off of the board. So you'd see all of the corrections, all of the blue pencil line, everything, right? As if it was still on the drawing board, and then put all of the paper together to make the comic book, but you're seeing it as if it was drawn just by the artist before he handed it out to Marvel or whatever company. So these books only ever contain about 5-6 comics. They've got all of the pages as the artwork was intended and left the artist to go to Marvel for corrections. Brilliant, gorgeous. I did one overview of John Romita, which if you want, go and look back. I will probably do the same for this one, Todd McFarlane, because I haven't got too many. I've got who have I got? I've got Todd McFarlane, John Romita Sr., and is the other one I've got? Oh, it'll come to me. It's not really important. But that book is immense. It's huge. And I'm so looking forward to taking it out of the wrapper and having a look. Brilliant. And so there's been no films that have turned up, I've not, anything that I've bought has not turned up yet, or there's just no new releases. But that didn't stop me from watching films. So we're going to now just show you that Galaxy Cam is still working. Ooh. But we'll move to media playback and we'll show off some of the films that I've watched this week. Not much, but ones that I'm either looking forward to buying in the future, if they ever get a release on 4K, or ones that bring happy memories to me, and they were just on TV this week. Maybe you can guess which ones I watched from a physical perspective and which ones I watched from it was broadcast on TV this week. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone off and play this for you now.
You've got to get it through your thick head. I may be a lot of things, but I am not a killer.
You don't have to blow her brains out or anything.
Thank you. That takes the pressure right off.
She's old. She's got a bad ticker. All you gotta do is jerk around a lot when you talk to her. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Lift. Stop it.
Evan, what the hell's going on out there?
We woke her up. Nothing, Mama.
Who's this?
This is Cousin Patty. He's gonna be staying with us for a while. Isn't that nice?
You don't have a cousin Patty.
You lied to me.
Bracing. This is going to penetrate.
Good evening. Civilized towns, you look a man direct in the face when you talk to him.
This isn't comfortable.
Well, it's not supposed to be.
There's a situation. Serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted.
She is my everything, and those savages have got her. God knows what they're doing to her, and every second that we delay.
You know who did this?
They don't have a name.
How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
I'm coming with you.
No, I need you here.
And this is what a backup's for, to help an emergency, not stay back. I'm coming.
Where making a 5-day journey in 3 days, riding along and sleeping the bare minimum.
I don't know what's west of here. No cattle trail or anything else goes in that direction.
If our horses die before we get there, or we go into hostile territory, weak and foggy with exhaustion, we won't rescue anybody.
Don't be scared. I am a friend.
You aren't.
Damn you!
You had no cause. If you want to question my morals, do it later.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive.
Ambush!
My home has been in the northern province of Kenya.
I have a little something for you.
Oh, we'll feed you. We'll make you strong and healthy. My favorite was the smallest, Elsa. A weakling in size, but the bravest of them all. She was beginning to realize that there was another life than the one we had been living together. That evening, we suffered all the agony of parents whose teenage daughter is out on her first date. The time was approaching when our lives would be changed forever.
The point is that you can't keep Elsa any longer. I'm sorry, but I think you've got to find some zoo that will take her.
I don't want her to go to a zoo. I want to set her free. We took her out for what became her most dangerous and final test.
We made her tame, and it's too late to try to let her go wild now. And is freedom so important?
Yes. She was born free, and she has the right to live free.
Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart.
And we're back. I'll let you guess which ones are on TV and which ones I watched on physical media. But yeah, Born Free. What can you say about Born Free? Absolutely one from my childhood, and one that I asked my dad the most amount of questions on in regards to the soundtrack, as well as the story behind it. So obviously there was a lot of liberties made with how true that story is. You know, how it's portrayed in the film. You know, with anything, you have to have a little bit of drama. You have to have a little bit of artistic merit, you know, to how everything that's said in it is true, but how it actually came about, not quite. And it's the same with the production of that. How many actual animals they went through in regards to get the shots and all of that sort of stuff. So, but I mean, that score, Born Free. My God, what a score! John Barry at his best. Amazing. And like I say, there's certain little gems that you remember that you go, I haven't seen that in ages. And Throw Mama from the Train is just one of them. Billy Crystal and Danny DeVito, I forgot all about that they were paired up to do that film, and it's a Mickey take of a Hitchcock film about, if I ask you to do you a favour, will you do a favour for me? And in the Hitchcock film, it was all about, if I kill a person that you don't like, will you kill a person that I don't like? Crisscross. And that was done on a train. But this one is throw mama from the train, and the same sort of thing. If I do something, will you do something? And it was all about death. Brilliant comedy. You wouldn't think of them as pairing them together that they'd be as funny as they were, but they were. So that was brilliant. And that really sort of like comes to the end of my blog. Other than to say Happy New Year to you all. Hopefully there's going to be a few things that are going to arrive in the post that I can show off. At the moment, I'm overjoyed that it's not costing me too much money at the moment, because everything I show you costs usually quite a bit of cash. And other than that, the other thing that just to sign off with is that I've been making paring down my ROMs for my emulators by using something called ROM Center, which I think everybody really that's in this emulation kick ought to really do. There's so many packages out there, wonderful packages out there that people have given us with all the different versions in different languages. But the trouble is they take up so much room, and I've then diminished what I actually play because I've got a load of rubbish that I'll never load. You know, I mean, do I really want, you know, the game Quake? But do I really want it in the languages of, you know, from the countries of Brazil, France, Italy, USA, Japan, and Europe, UK, etc., etc. I mean, 8 versions of Quake when you're only ever going to load them, one of them. Possibly 2 because the other one, another country might have something extra in it. So it makes perfect sense. Get rid of the other 6, you know, or so versions. Then you'll be able to download something that you've never downloaded before, like which might be CD images of games, because you never had the space. Because now you have got the space. So it's been a little bit like that with me this week. And the other thing is that I played another game on my VR called Asgard's Wrath 2. Did a little video of it. The thing about those is that I'm learning all the time how to cast the images from my headset to something that can capture it. Most of the stuff I've been doing has been internal capturing on the hard drive of the device itself. So you'll never get the immense or the immersion that I get playing the game, but you can get to see what the graphics are like and how they've improved compared to VR from, say, 5 years ago. And with that, I definitely am signing off, and salute, bye-bye, hopefully see you next week. Bye.